When it comes to grappling strength and the strength that's required for grappling sports, there are a couple different kinds of strength. You have to have the strength to not only apply force, doesn't really matter how you're doing that, you just got to apply force into your opponent. That could be pushing them, that can be pulling them, that can be like running through them on a takedown. You're applying force into your opponent. Now, there's also types of strength that you need in grappling sports where you're moving your own body weight. You need to pull your knees to your chest. You need to spin upside down. You need to extend up and arch your back in a specific way. You need to have great control over your body. And how we assess how strong you need to be for jiu-jitsu, on one hand, we're going to assess body weight strength. So how strong can you be with your own body weight? How well can you control and move your own body weight? But then on the other hand, we also need to test, okay, how much just like raw strength and raw force production does someone have? So we do want to tackle both sides. If you're an athlete and you're super, super strong in the barbell lifts that we're going to talk about later in this episode, but you're very weak in the body weight strength exercises, that's a problem. If you're someone who's maybe a smaller, lighter athlete and you can do pull-ups, dips for days, yet your barbell strength is pretty weak, that's also going to be a problem. We want to make sure that we kind of find this good balance between all of these different strength standards, so that way we don't have any gaping holes in our athleticism. I do tend to see kind of both ends of that spectrum. I do meet guys that are brand new to jiu-jitsu and maybe they came from a powerlifting background. They can deadlift a house, they can squat a house, their bench press is pretty ridiculous, yet their body weight strength is lacking. They really struggle on pull-ups, chin-ups, dips, and they're not anywhere close to getting a full Nordic curl. When that happens, we got to make sure we implement different strategies into their training, so that way there's a good balance of both. You got the body weight strength, the strength to control and move your own body, as well as the strength to apply tons and tons of force into your opponent and into the environment around you. The best exercises really are just exercises that work within those main movement patterns. Some sort of squat, some sort of lunge, some sort of hip hinge or deadlift style movement, rotation and anti-rotation, pressing movements both vertically and horizontally, and pulling movements vertically and horizontally. So when we look at body weight strength, it makes sense that one of our primary forms of assessing body weight strength is going to be a vertical pulling motion, which is just a pull-up. Pull-ups are palms forward. Palms backwards or palms facing your face are going to be chin-ups. For myself and the athletes that I coach, at a minimum, I believe that any competitive grappling athlete, even if you're not a competitive grappling athlete, this is still a good goal to shoot for. But at a minimum, if you're going to compete in jiu-jitsu, regardless of weight class, if you're a man, you compete in jiu-jitsu, you need to be able to do 10 pull-ups. If you can't do 10 pull-ups, that's a problem. That is a weakness that is going to hold you back from being able to feel and perform your best. And we'll talk about in just a little bit on how you can improve your pull-ups. But at a minimum, you got to be able to do 10 pull-ups. And I'm talking strict pull-ups, like no swinging, no kipping pull-ups, full extension, elbows locked at the bottom, chin all the way over the bar at the top. 10 reps at a minimum. Now, just because you can reach that minimum doesn't mean you should stop there. You should continue to increase your strength in that movement. And I think a good base for grapplers would be to aim for 15 pull-ups. If you can do 15 pull-ups, that's honestly really, really solid. Regardless if you're a rooster weight, regardless if you're an ultra heavyweight, if you can do 15 pull-ups, that's awesome. At an elite level, so like building elite level strength in this movement, would be 20 pull-ups or more. So at a minimum, you should be able to do 10 pull-ups. I don't care if you're a 235-pound ultra heavyweight or you're a 115-pound rooster weight, you should be able to do 10 pull-ups. If you can't, you got to fix that. A good base standard to shoot for would be 15 pull-ups. If you can do 20 pull-ups, that is fantastic. I would consider that to be elite level strength in that movement. And once you hit 20 pull-ups or more, I really don't see much benefit in training to go much farther beyond that. So going from the work that it's going to take to go from 20 pull-ups to 25 pull-ups in one set, that time could be used differently for some better outcomes, in my opinion. So at a minimum for pull-ups, 10 reps. Base standard for pull-ups, 15 reps. Elite standard, 20 reps or more. If you could do more than 20 reps on pull-ups, I'd say you're cleared to start adding weight and doing some weighted pull-ups. For myself and the athletes I coach, it's my personal rule that I don't have any athletes do weighted pull-ups until they can do 20 strict bodyweight pull-ups. Main reason being is because I don't think the athletes are going to get any additional value by adding weight unless they can do 20 plus pull-ups. Like if someone can only do 10 pull-ups, I don't think they're going to get much value out of doing weighted pull-ups for 1 to 2 reps. If someone can do 15 pull-ups, they're kind of flirting on that edge there. I'd much rather them just continue to put in the work to build up their capacity to do 20 pull-ups. Once you can do 20 pull-ups, you're not going to get much additional strength benefits by working from going to 20 to 25 reps on pull-ups, so you might as well just add a little bit of additional weight. That's my own personal take. It's worked for all the athletes that I've coached. I know not every coach agrees with that rule, so to speak, but this has worked well for myself and all the athletes that I coach. The next exercise that we're going to use to test bodyweight strength is going to be a pressing exercise, and that's going to be the bodyweight dip. For the bodyweight dip, the standards for these are you're going to start elbows fully locked out at the top. When you come down, all that needs to happen is your shoulder just has to get below your elbow. If you can get lower and get like a really big stretch in your pecs and work through a giant range of motion, that's fantastic. Not everyone can do that right away. At a minimum, regardless of what weight class you are, if you're a guy and you compete in jiu-jitsu, you need to be able to do 10 full range of motion dips. If you can't do that, that's a problem. Same thing with pull-ups. We said like, hey, 10 reps on pull-ups is the minimum, but ideally you should be working that up a little bit higher. So same thing for dips. 10 reps on dips is the minimum, but a good base standard for dips is going to be 20 strict bodyweight dips. The elite standard for bodyweight dips is going to be 30 reps. If you can do more than 30 reps on dips, that is fantastic. That's a ton of dips, and I don't think you're going to get much benefit by taking that number much farther beyond that. And same thing with pull-ups. If you can do more than 30 dips in an unbroken set, like you've hit the elite standard on dips with just your body weight, I'd say you're in a good spot to start adding some weight to that exercise. Now, those kind of cover the main ways I like to test body weight strength for the upper body. If you are someone that really struggles with pull-ups or really struggles with dips, you can kind of scale that back a little bit. So you try to do a pull-up and you can get one pull-up. It's like, okay, that's great. That's all you got, just one pull-up. You could kind of scale it by doing different forms of vertical pulling exercises that are a little bit easier than just a strict bodyweight pull-up. So you can do things like chin-ups, you can do assisted pull-ups, you can do like partial range of motion pull-ups, or even just isometric holds for chin-ups and pull-ups on the bar. Same thing for dips. If you really struggle with dips and you can't do more than 3 dips without falling off, you might want to test your push-ups first. Then once you can get more than 30 push-ups in a single set, then go ahead and transition to something like dips. We'll go over in a little bit some different programming that you can use to improve your strength in those two movements, but I want to tackle the last bodyweight strength test that I use. That's going to be the Nordic curl. The Nordic curl is pretty much like a pull-up for your lower body. It is awesome. It's a great test of hamstring strength, and I will say that, there's no way of proving this in some fancy scientific study, but right before I injured my knee, I hit a lifetime PR on Nordic curls. I think I got 11. No, did I get 11 Nordic curls? I think I did. I don't think I got 12, but I think I got 11 Nordic curls. And my hamstrings were super, super, super strong. And there is a bit of a correlation with increasing hamstring strength. It does tend to have a bit of a correlation with decreasing risk of knee injury, or at the very least, decreasing the severity of knee injury. And I think that even though my knee injury happened because I injured myself, I put someone in a calf slicer, wasn't finishing it the proper way, put a ton of strain on my LCL, and then that thing ended up just blown apart. So it wasn't like, if I could do 15 Nordic curls, the injury wasn't going to happen. I don't think that's necessarily true. I really did just injure myself. But I will say, I do think a big part of why I was able to come back to jiu-jitsu so quickly was because my hamstrings were so strong. I think another thing that helped in building up that hamstring strength with the Nordic curl was just building up strong enough hamstrings so that way I was actually able to move around a little bit better than if I injured my knee and didn't have that hamstring strength. I'll have to do a full episode on the full entire history of that injury and how I rehabbed it. But all that to say, the Nordic curl is a great test of lower body hamstring strength. And at a minimum, and this is a pretty tough minimum, like not everyone can do a Nordic curl right out the jump. I know I definitely couldn't. I had to train specifically for it and build up my hamstring strength. But I believe that at a minimum, every grappling athlete, whether you're a rooster weight all the way up to ultra heavyweight, every male grappling athlete should be able to do at least one unassisted, full range of motion Nordic curl at a minimum. The base standard for that would be 3 Nordic curls. If you can work your way up to 3 Nordic curls, man, that's freaking dope. You're getting crazy, crazy strong, and that's awesome. An elite standard for Nordic curls, in my opinion, would be 6 reps or more. If you can do more than 6 Nordic curls, you can keep pushing that and try to increase up to like 9, 10, 11 reps on the Nordic curl. However, I don't think that's going to add much additional benefit to your overall grappling strength. And that's something that I saw in myself. It took me a little while to get my first Nordic curl. And then pretty quickly, I was able to get to 3 Nordic curls, 5 reps, 6 reps. And I just kept pushing it. And I didn't really notice any more improvements in my physicality in jiu-jitsu, going from 6 Nordic curls up to 11 Nordic curls. It was really cool to be able to, bust down on 11 reps, but that was pretty much it. So those are the standards for the bodyweight exercises. Just to review these one last time, our 3 bodyweight strength testers are going to be pull-ups, dips, and Nordic curls. For pull-ups and dips, the minimum standard is going to be 10 reps. The base standard for pull-ups is 15 reps, and the elite standard for pull-ups is 20 reps. For dips, the base standard is going to be 20 reps. The elite standard is going to be 30 reps. Now for the Nordic curls, minimum standard, just 1 rep. If you can do 1 rep, that's solid. However, it is a good idea to work up to that base standard of 3 reps. An elite standard for the Nordic curl is going to be 6 reps or more. Now, we are also going to talk about different barbell strength standards. However, it's important to keep in mind that you don't need to test these right away, specifically the barbell lifts. Anytime I work with a brand new athlete that I'm coaching one-on-one, I take them through a strength assessment and I have them do those bodyweight exercises first. So I test their pull-ups, I test their dips, and then I also test some hamstring stuff to see okay, are we even in the ballpark of testing a full range of motion Nordic curl? Most of the time when I start working with someone, they can't do a Nordic curl. So we usually don't test specifically the Nordic curl right away, but we might test some other posterior chain exercises like deadlifts or maybe even glute ham raises. But that was going to be it for bodyweight strength that I do pretty much right when I start working with a new athlete.